Direct from our newsroom in New York, this is the CBS Evening News with Charles Curalt substituting for Walter Cronkite, and Eric Severide in Miami Beach, Mike Wallace in Miami Beach, Bob Allison in London, John Lawrence in New York, and Josh Darsa in Chicago.
Good evening. In Miami Beach today, Richard Nixon answered those Republicans who have criticized his choice of running mate. The reason he chose Spiro Agnew, said Mr. Nixon, is that he's had solid experience in local government. And Nixon said no one should underrate Spiro Agnew. He's got a certain mystique, said Mr. Nixon. You can look him in the eye and you know he's got it. En route to a news conference today, Mr. Nixon gave Mike Wallace an idea of the pace of the campaign to come.
How's the globe?
Fine, thank you, sir.
All right.
How much sleep did you get last night?
A little more, 4 hours last night. So that seats 4 plus 1.5. That's 6 and 2 nights. That's about what it's going to be from now on, anybody covering us.
At his news conference, Nixon disclosed that President Johnson called him to offer congratulations and sympathy and to invite him to his ranch for a foreign affairs briefing.
Down the middle. And so he suggested that maybe we could arrange our schedule to leave a little earlier from Florida tomorrow and stop at the ranch. My first visit, incidentally, to the ranch, and for a personal reason, I would like to see it. This was his initiative, and I appreciate it very much. We're going to be briefed regularly during the course of the campaign, not only on Vietnam, but any other developments. He's been, while President Johnson and I know, I read some of the columns, are supposed to be mortal blood feud enemies. We do have some things in common. We have a mutual respect, and I would like to go down for a personal reason to just call on him and pay my respect.
The formal news conference was not the end of Richard Nixon's day of appearing before the press. He talked to reporters happily all day and even sang for them, as Mike Wallace reports.
Richard Nixon is utterly happy, utterly relaxed. Just a few moments ago, before he came out on this par 3 golf course at the Key Biscayne Hotel, he sat down at the piano inside and dedicated this song to Lyndon Johnson.
Nixon held several impromptu news conferences during the afternoon. At one of them, he was asked about whether he's bothered by the relative obscurity of Spiro Agnew.
Doesn't bother me a bit. His relative obscurity would have bothered me had it been 15 years ago, 20 years ago. But you gentlemen in television must know the truth of what I now speak. A man overnight can become known through the tube.
Nixon now considers himself something of an expert on the political uses of what he calls the tube, television. He disdains the panel broadcasts, Face the Nation, Meet the Press. Not enough people watch them, he thinks. He will use television during the campaign, mostly talk shows and specially prepared commercials. And he said today he hopes arrangements can be made for television debates against the man he expects to be his opponent in November, Hubert Humphrey. Mike Wallace, CBS News, Key Biscayne, Florida.
So Mr. Nixon and the Republicans have their day at the ranch tomorrow, but today, Texas was strictly for the Democrats. President Johnson and Vice President Humphrey spent about 4 hours together at the ranch. Most of the talk was said to be about foreign affairs and other administration matters, but it seems safe to assume that politics did come up. In Houston, politics came up for certain when Senator McCarthy arrived there and was endorsed by Senator Ralph Yarborough, a leading Texas Democrat. Some leading supporters of the late Senator Robert Kennedy's attempt to win the presidency have been casting about for a new candidate since his death, and it appears they have found one, Senator George McGovern of South Dakota. A McGovern headquarters has been set up in New York, And Senator McGovern has announced he will hold a news conference tomorrow, presumably to announce his candidacy for the Democratic nomination. McGovern's announcement at 11 a.m. Eastern Time will be broadcast live by CBS television.
Can the right denture cleanser really make a difference? Listen to what Mr. Bill Adler thinks.
I feel so sure of myself, knowing my dentures are really clean, odor-free, all because of Polident tablets.
Polident tablets fight denture stain and odor safely. Look, this denture material is covered with a tough food stain. Drop it into water with an effervescent Polident tablet, and in minutes your dentures are cleaner, brighter, fresher. Get Polident tablets.
If you're a denture wearer and buying foods your whole family can eat but you can't because they loosen your dentures, you need Polygrip. What does Polygrip do that powder adhesives can't? Say this glass is your denture. Sprinkle on a powder adhesive. Press. At first it holds, but powders can weaken. Your dentures can let go. But not with Polygrip. No gaps, no letting go, no embarrassment. Get Polygrip and eat the same foods the rest of your family eats.
President Tito of Yugoslavia finally made it to Prague today, an official visit that was postponed while Czechoslovak and Soviet leaders discussed how far democratic communism should go in Czechoslovakia. Bob Allison describes Tito's arrival.
He had said he would come at a moment's notice when the Soviet tanks were threatening the Czechoslovakians. Now, all the Russian tanks are gone. But both Tito and the Czechs still felt that this trip was necessary. He is here now to help the Czech leaders consolidate the gains they have made in their war of nerves with the Russians, gains which left them with a free hand in running the internal affairs of their country. It was a fight Tito fought himself more than 20 years ago when Stalin lowered his Iron Curtain over the East European communist countries. And one Czech leader today, recalling that his country had attacked Tito's position then, told reporters, "This is the first payment on a great debt we owe this man." For it was the support of Tito this time, along with the Romanian government and Western communist parties, that enabled the Czechs to hold on to their newly won freedoms. And his reception at the airport was the most enthusiastic welcome Prague has given any visitor in recent history. The Czechs had postponed the visit several times these last 2 weeks. They were afraid the tremendous crowds which Tito was sure to attract might turn the affair into an anti-Soviet demonstration. But there were no signs of that today. All the noise was made by tens of thousands of shouts, "Long live Tito." He is, next to Czechoslovakian party leader Dubček, the most popular communist leader in this country. One party official remarked at the airport, "It has been years since Prague has seen anything like this." Bob Allison, CBS News.
A turboprop plane of British Eagle Airlines today crashed beside an Autobahn at Pfaffenhofen, West Germany, killing all 48 persons aboard. Most of the passengers were vacationers bound from London to Innsbruck and Venice. One eyewitness said the plane was trying to land on the auto freeway. Nobody knows for sure. Debris was strewn for 200 feet along the Autobahn, and one car was hit. Its driver was seriously injured. National Guard troops were pulled out of a Negro district of Miami today after 2 days of violence there. There were some reports of scattered shooting and rock throwing today, but officials said the new trouble was relatively minor. Just the same, they ordered a curfew for tonight. Doctors at Walter Reed Medical Center in Washington said today that former President Eisenhower, who suffered his 6th heart attack on Monday, continues to gain strength and is in excellent spirits. However, they emphasized that Mr. Eisenhower, who is 77, is still critically ill.
It wasn't too long ago. If you smoked a reduced tar and nicotine cigarette, you were pretty much alone in the world. But a lot's happened since then. You're not alone anymore. Today, more and more people smoke true filter cigarettes because true satisfies. Satisfies with good taste and reduced tar and nicotine. True filter cigarettes with the air filtration system, the good feel of a built-in mouthpiece, the good taste, and reduced tar and nicotine, with or without menthol. Shouldn't your brand be true?
In Vietnam, 3 different battles are reported within 10 miles of Hue today. Another sign that the enemy may be massing for a new attack on that old imperial capital. American air cavalrymen drove back a force just north of Hue. And in the 2 other clashes, U.S. troops caught communist bands on the prowl for food. Nearly 90 enemy troops are reported dead. There's no word on American casualties. The U.S. command reports another of those tragedies of the war for Vietnamese civilians. American troops aboard patrol boats in the Mekong Delta successfully defended themselves against 2 Viet Cong ambushes. But by mistake, they also fired on the riverside village of Cai Rang. 16 people in the village were killed and 120 others were injured. A young Marine has been accused of the murder of 5 Vietnamese civilians last May on a battlefield near Hue. He is Lance Corporal Denzel Allen of Lebanon, Indiana. 6 other Marines are also accused of individual murders in the case. The charges are now under review, and the trials, if ordered, will begin this fall. You know how merchant seamen are. They like to see the world, enjoy shore leaves, eat and drink, and get paid. Well, one ship's crew, marooned absurdly in the middle of a busy harbor, is doing none of those things very regularly. CBS News correspondent John Lawrence has their strange story.
For the 27 Korean sailors aboard the Indonesian Star, their ship is an island. The freighter and its crew have been marooned in the middle of New York Harbor for 6 months. The Indonesian Star arrived in New York in February after a 5-month voyage from the Far East, around the Cape of Good Hope. But before the cargo of rubber and mahogany could be unloaded, U.S. Marshals came aboard, slapped notices of arrest and seizure across the windows of the pilot house, and the Indonesian Star was stranded. The American owners of the ship, the Galveston Steamship Company, are in debt some $860,000, and no one has come forward to pay. Captain Yun Hong Jo sends letters and telegrams, but the owners do not answer. He is unable to pay his sailors' wages, and their morale, he says, is very low. Twice they have seen the seasons change, and now they wait at anchor under a broiling summer sun for the American courts to decide if they will be able to go home. They did not dream when they sailed from Pusan last October that August would find them marooned in New York Harbor, listening to records on the portable phonograph Chu Sang-kyun's mother sent him from home, playing endless games of peitok, the ancient Oriental process for passing the time. The words of the popular Korean folk singer Lee Mae-ja have a particular poignancy for the homesick crew of the Indonesian Star, the husband who goes on a long journey, and his wife at home who is unfaithful. Suk Tai-wan did not have the money to go home in May for his father's funeral. Kim Suk-kwan's mother died in July. Every man aboard was sending money home to help support his family until New York, and the paycheck stopped. Peta, the mascot, has the best spirits aboard, although the men fear their Indonesian monkey has been idle so long he is losing his sea legs. In the mess, where no lunch is served because there is no money, a television set loaned by the local seamen's church helps keep minds off empty stomachs. The favorite program is what the South Korean sailors call home drama, which we know as soap opera. Still, they would rather have a ping-pong table. Chu Sang-kyun, who is 27, writes his mother often, asking in each letter if she has seen his fiancée, Lee Jung-suk, who no longer writes to him, after 10 months at sea and no money for the family. Conditions aboard the Indonesian Star are better since the people of Staten Island brought food and water, and the exterminator came and killed the swarms of roaches that plagued the decks. But there is no paint to preserve the rusting hull, no work, and nowhere to go for sailors on shore leave with no money. The American people, they say, have been very kind, but the owner of this ship
is no good. John Lawrence, CBS News on the Indonesian Star in New York Harbor.
You won't get your vitamins munching peanuts for lunch.
I'm miles from the nearest diner.
Aren't you going to stop for lunch?
I'd rather skate than eat.
What's a mother to do?
Serve them Total, the vitamin cereal, the only leading cereal hot or cold with a whole day's vitamin supply. 1 bowl, 1 ounce gives you 100% of every minimum daily adult vitamin requirement now set by the U.S. government.
Enjoy Total every day. Feel vitamin safe all day.
If you just met a new person and you're stuck for a way to fill in the awkward silences, offer him Bugles. Bugles are love, truth, beauty, corn, and a little salt.
Senator McCarthy's campaign manager, Stephen Mitchell, said today in Chicago that the Democratic National Committee is helping Johnson-Humphrey backers get accommodations in that city and is trying to get them better facilities at the convention hall. Committee Chairman John Bailey denied the charges. Meanwhile, work is continuing at the International Amphitheater for the opening of the Democratic Convention August 26th. But as we learned from Josh Darsa, Chicago's long telephone equipment workers' strike could have a serious effect on the convention.
I think we're going to have the finest convention ever held in any city. I think it's going to be a wonderful convention. It's going to nominate the next president, and all of us know the friendliness and hospitality of the people of Chicago to our visitors, and we're going to have the finest convention.
Mayor Richard Daley's optimism that the Democratic Convention will be the finest ever is debatable at this point. Without proper telephone facilities, it can't be. With the exception of the convention amphitheater itself, striking electrical workers will not install telephones in the Chicago area. And since much of the backstage maneuvering takes place away from the amphitheater, the Democratic Convention might be undercommunicated.
We, as the Democratic National Committee, feel that we're in good shape. The candidates will be put at some disadvantage because their principal work with delegates necessarily has to be done at the headquarters area, the downtown headquarters area where the delegates will be. They don't have phones there now other than the phones that are in the hotels.
McCarthy, President, may I help you?
The telephone shortage may hurt Senator Eugene McCarthy. His workers moved into this office because of the switchboard that could handle 30 lines. But now they can't get phones installed. They have 40 people in the office and only 11 usable telephones. McCarthy does have messengers, but they are not enough.
That's 1548.
Curtis Gans, one of the senator's political strategists from Washington, visited another McCarthy office in Chicago.
Specifically, what problems have you discovered?
Well, there are a whole series of problems. You're now in one of our offices. In this office, we have 4 rooms, 12 people, and 4 phones. When I was in Washington and I was trying to establish communication and find out what was going on out here in Chicago, it sometimes took me up to 5 hours to get a free line into this hotel.
Well, politically, then, what does this mean if they don't have enough?
I don't think it means anything politically because they're balanced off. One has just as much advantage as the other.
Well, in terms of influencing delegates, if you don't have enough phones, what does it mean?
I think it balances. If one doesn't have enough phones, the other doesn't have enough phones, then they will both do what they can, and their wits allow them to do, and I think they'll be on an equal basis.
Why would you be at a disadvantage because of a lack of telephones? Wouldn't, again, Vice President Humphrey be at a disadvantage equally?
Well, we're all at a disadvantage. We are at a more serious disadvantage because we have a greater need to reach people, because politics, of course, is the art of persuasion. We have a lot more people to persuade than he does.
Chicago's Conrad Hilton Hotel has 2,300 rooms with their own telephone extensions. During the convention, the Hilton will be headquarters for the Democratic National Committee, for Hubert Humphrey, for Eugene McCarthy, and for the Minnesota, Texas, and Oklahoma delegations. If the telephone strike continues, only the usual 40 incoming lines will be available during the convention. At the last national political convention held in Chicago, the Hilton, with greatly increased telephone facilities, averaged more than 40,000 incoming calls a day. The strike may also have an impact on live television coverage. For example, here in the Hilton's International Ballroom, scene of what may be dramatic hearings by the Credentials Committee. In past conventions, television cameras have roamed the corridors and lobbies of the headquarters hotels. But in Chicago, that may not be possible. Two questions are critical. One, will the union place pickets outside the hotels? There is no indication it will, but picketing, if it happened, could keep other union workers outside, including most of the television people. Second question, can microwave relays be installed to transmit television signals? So far, the union has refused to install such relays. This problem, if it is not solved, could limit television coverage. And again, the McCarthy people fear they will be at a disadvantage.
We're underdogs. We're behind. It's important to us that people know what's happening in Chicago, that as many people be aware of what's happening outside the amphitheater. We'll be hurt. It'll be a blow to the McCarthy campaign. Everyone depends on television to tell you what's happening now and where it's happening. And that's what we'll be missing. We'll be back to smoke-filled rooms of antiquity.
The possible limitation of television remotes could affect more than coverage of politicking downtown. There is some fear it could black out coverage of mass demonstrations scheduled in Chicago. We spoke with Rennie Davis of the Mobilization to End the War.
The fact that the mayor and the Electoral for Workers have reached an agreement which does not include the setting up of the circuits and microwave relays that are needed for instantaneous coverage on the outside suggests to us in very explicit terms that it's a kind of heavy-handed news management that has characterized much of the Democratic Party administration, particularly in Vietnam and now here at the Democratic Convention.
Installation continues at the amphitheater. The union says its decision to install equipment here only was not suggested by Mayor Daley, but originated with the union itself. And chief union negotiator Robert Nickey insists he will not make further concessions.
What about the difficulties all the delegates, and particularly the candidates, might have in town at their headquarters, at the Hilton, and so on?
Well, I think that's a problem they ought to take to the telephone company and make them get down at a bargaining table.
In short, it's clear that unless the telephone strike is settled, the Chicago Convention will be less than ideal for many of those involved. Almost everyone will be inconvenienced to some degree. The McCarthy people are convinced that they will be hurt the most. Josh Darcis, CBS News, Chicago.
The nation's longest newspaper strike finally ended today in Detroit. For the first time in 268 days, the Detroit News published its afternoon editions. The morning paper, the Free Press, is scheduled to return to the stands tomorrow. Prices on the New York Stock Exchange closed mixed today on a volume of 8,400,000 shares. The exchange index lost 1 cent.
Are you concerned about air pollution? So are we, Phillips 66. And we've done something about it. Developed an anti-pollution motor oil. It's called Trop Arctic, and it can be the most important clean air device in your car. So let's clear the air. Change to Trop Arctic, the anti-pollution motor oil. We'll even give you a head start. If you change oil now, we'll give you your first quart free. That's right, free. Like the air.
The big thing for a gasoline company is to be there when it counts. Phillips 66 tries to be.
Yes, sir. My steering feels a little funny, like something scraping.
We're now in all 50 states with thousands and thousands of stations. And that says a lot about the kind of service we give.
You had a branch caught behind your wheel.
Next time you need performance you can count on, we'll try to be there. At Phillips 66, it's performance that counts.
Eric Severide, a convention watcher all week, now has a final word on what the Republicans left behind and what's ahead for them. Miami Beach, like the Republican Party, is back to normalcy today, if there is such a condition, for this holiday stretch of sand. That great Cave of the Winds convention hall is now occupied by silence and the trash collectors. The benumbed minds of the survivors retain only two memorable phrases from 4 days of what someone called a combination of oratory, grand opera, and hog-calling. Please clear the aisle, and which Governor Rockefeller? The Republican Party has chosen the candidate least offensive to its various factions taken together. He has chosen a vice presidential candidate inoffensive to certain party factions from the South, who in large measure held the balance of power in this convention. The dog-in-the-manger role of George Wallace very considerably affected the calculations here. In this generation, a two-party South has developed as the vast region changes with the times. Nixon does not expect to block Wallace in 3 or 4 states of the Deep South, but he does think he can cut him down in what he calls the southern perimeter states. He is impressed with the strength of the forces in those states working for change, seeking full reconciliation with the mainstreams of the national life. He says it would be easy to demagogue on the racial riot issue, to call out a heavy backlash vote, but that he will not do so because whoever becomes the next president must not inherit a black-white war in this country. So he expects to walk the ghettos like other candidates, trying to create a dialogue with those who feel left out of life, knowing quite well that he will never get the support of what he calls the professional liberals, white or black. His manner on this day after is one of great confidence. It is the air of a man convinced that he knows how to put the voting jigsaw puzzle together for November. At least in his secondary characteristics, there is a new Nixon. He knows his own mind now. He is much more sure-footed than he used to be. But he is still the man that the leading Democratic candidates hoped the Republicans would nominate. They think he is vulnerable on his record and on the basis of the non-support for him from many well-defined groupings in the country. In this city today, the disbanding political and journalistic task forces are trying to think ahead. But inevitably, and once again, there are the weary postmortems, the wondering and wishing about the possibilities for getting away from this ritualistic convention system for good. Delegates can be chosen by more direct and equitable methods. The convention business, already more streamlined than it used to be, can be streamlined still more. But the hypothetical alternatives to conventions, such as a nationwide primary, seem even worse the more they are examined. Solid reasons lay behind the origin of the party convention. One was the necessity to preserve political parties themselves. The Constitution did not provide for parties. They were regarded then as evils. Since then, the national experience has been that democracy requires them, that the transfer of power without bloodshed requires them, and they are likely to require the convention for as far as one can see ahead. Charles? Walter Cronkite returns to this chair on Monday. This is Charles Kuralt. Good night.
Did you put that bra through the washing machine?
Sure I did. It's a Playtex Living Stretch Bra, made to be machine washed.
But I have midriff bulge. I really need a long line.
With some dresses, so do I. Then I wear the Playtex Long Line Stretch Bra. Same lasting stretch. Straps, sides.
And it's light, cool.
Really takes care of midriff bulge comfortably.
That's for me.
For lasting stretch that won't wash out, new Playtex Living Stretch Bra.
That's the hard way to be firm and flatter. The easy way, the firm and flatter Lycra girdle by Playtex. Ring forces. These elastic V-bands lift your tummy in. These elastic bands keep your waistline thin. You're firmer, you're flatter in the Playtex Firm and Flatter Girdle made with Lycra.
This has been the CBS Evening News with Charles Kuralt, substituting for Walter Cronkite. Watch a riotous new comedy series, The Doris Day Show, Tuesday nights starting this fall on CBS.